glad to see you. We're going to record this because we are going to go a little bit long. We know some of you may have hard stops at 1 that will capture any questions. I'm happy to introduce a really strong and interesting set of presenters. I'm going to start with this planned agenda. We're going to start off with Matt Trippall, who is the Planning Division Manager at the Allegheny County Economic Development. Matt was battling with food poisoning overnight, so Matt is not going to be able to speak with us today. I apologize. So what we're going to do is Matt's notes and Matt's slides we're going to distribute to everyone who is joined this webinar. It won't be as effective. It's never as effective reading someone's notes, but that's the best we can do. But also Beth Euler and Stephanie Wiedner are with us today, and they've graciously agreed to add a little more detail, linger a little bit longer, take more questions from you all, so that we should still have a good, strong set of training today. We are going to provide a professional development hour for anyone who needs it. We will send out a note after the webinar explaining how you all can get that. We say 1 hour here. It kind of depends on how things go. That's when we had 3 speakers. It might be more like 3/4 of an hour. We'll work those details out and get in touch with you. We encourage you to enter your questions into the chat as they occur, and either myself or John Burgess will ensure that they get asked. And we'll have a brief period of question and answer after each presentation, but we want to try to put the vast majority of the questions at the end so both of our speakers can talk to you about both of them. Just a plug here for the design webinar, which will be occurring on September 18th. We're going to be sending out this information directly after the webinar, or by the end of the week, more or less. And again, this is all sponsored by the Pitt IRISE. We want to thank them in particular for the support, and the Pittsburgh Water Collaboratory and the Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission have been partnering on getting this webinar series together. The chat is blowing up. Let me make sure. No, that's not me not being heard. Then the final thing I want to make a plug for is on December 4th, we're going to have our second IRISE Stormwater Symposium. We're going to make sure that everyone on this webinar gets details on that, but I encourage you to keep that date free on your calendar. I think the first one a couple of years ago was very good, and with the momentum from things like this, Lunch and Learn, we really are looking for a great event. With that, I am going to stop sharing and pass it to Beth Euler.
You had it right the first time.
I know. God.
It's okay.
Beth Euler. No, Beth
Euler. It's okay.
Yeah.
There you go. It's all right. It's normal. It's normal. People getting that, but like mixed up a little bit. So no worries at all. But thanks, Dan. Appreciate the opportunity to be here, and thanks to all the partners that are hosting this webinar. And kind of was second on the agenda originally, and I think that Matt was really going to talk about how the stormwater management was incorporated, or it can be incorporated into the comprehensive planning process. So kind of high level overview of that, and what Allegheny County is undertaking in terms of that. I'm going to be talking about regional stormwater management planning and using kind of some existing regulatory tools that we have to work on a multi-municipal scale, and then realize some real world benefits too. So So moving forward, I actually take this slide from our Stormwater 101 course that we do, but we typically put impacts of stormwater into two buckets: quality and quantity. And these two impacts, the quality of water and water quantity, are not separate. It's not black and white. It's not concrete. They're intrinsically related. The NPDS Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System program historically has really focused on the water quality aspect of stormwater impacts. And then we have Pennsylvania's Act 167 Stormwater Management Planning program that really heavily focuses on water quantity. And so just as these two impacts are very closely related, those two programs are not standalone and separate. They are extremely related. There is a lot of overlap and in turn, a lot of opportunity for folks to kind of use both programs to work collaboratively. And hopefully by the end of this, there'll be a little bit of a connection there. So just a little brief history of stormwater management regulations in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, we have the Clean Streams Law that was enacted many years before the Federal Clean Water Act. So that's something that the state of Pennsylvania has been really strong in, and has historically regulated even and prior to federal regulations. So Clean Water Act was in 1972, and that's where a lot of the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit programs began, where we're looking at actual pollutant discharges into streams, industrial discharges, large scale construction sites for erosion and sediment control. And then 1978 is when Pennsylvania Stormwater Management Act was enacted, and that's Act 167. So we'll get into that in a little bit more detail. But it wasn't really until 2003 where we had the basically all of our permits here in Pennsylvania for a small MS4. So that's kind of the large history. We had some large MS4 permits, but we only have two large MS4s in Pennsylvania, and that's Philadelphia and Allentown. So we have over 1,000 small MS4 permittees, municipalities, and some non-municipal MS4s. So as far as Act 167 is concerned, just right from Act 167, reading the boring legislation, if you wanted to, that says the purpose is really to preserve and restore the flood carrying capacity of streams, and then preserving the natural stormwater runoff regimes, and then also protecting and conserving groundwater and groundwater recharge areas. So in the purpose as relates to water, it doesn't really even mention water quality, interestingly enough, but we all know that these things are very closely related. In terms especially of urbanization, creation of impervious surfaces, a lot of the siltation impacts that we see, it's not from sediment that's laying on the surface of the ground. It's from unmanaged stormwater runoff from impervious surfaces that is eroding stream banks, and that stream erosion is really causing a lot of our sediment impairments from urban causes. And so back in 1978, the Act 167 was enacted that requires stormwater management plans to be developed by counties, and then updated every 5 years. And so, you may not even know whether your county has an Act 167 stormwater management plan. But I will say that there's been kind of an added emphasis on compliance with these over the past several years. One being because we are seeing, more frequent and more intense storm events as a result of, our climate change that we're experiencing, and then also we're seeing funding finally for the development of these plans. And for many years it was kind of like an unfunded mandate per se, similar to what some may view the municipal separate storm sewer system permit program. But now there is some funding available through DEP. So I'm just going to lay that out here and remind you at the end about that to check the Growing Greener Plus program when it comes out again in 2026, because there should be some funding still available for counties that want to undertake this planning process. So anyway, it also requires counties to form a watershed planning advisory committee, which is comprised of all the municipalities that are either within the county, if the county decides to undertake a countywide plan, or within the specific watershed, the Act 160 watershed, if they decide to do individual watershed-based plans. Counties that decide to do a countywide plan, they're still going to look at individual watersheds. You can't assess water resources and stormwater management without looking at it on a watershed scale. But they need to engage all of the municipalities that are a part of that. And they have the opportunity to sit on this watershed planning advisory committee. And that includes those outside of the county jurisdiction that have overlapping watershed boundaries. So it may be a different county, maybe a different state. Also includes nonprofit stakeholders that do a lot of work in the watershed or in the county. And any other partners. It could actually include like large commercial water users and things like that. And so that's kind of up to those additional participants are up to the discretion of the county undertaking it. And the municipality is really important because that's where we get all the information to include and assess as part of these stormwater management plans. Where are the problem areas that we need to take a closer look at? Because as good as modeling can be, sometimes we really need to collect actual ground level information from municipalities, from emergency responders, and that type of thing. So the end result is a plan that identifies where problem areas are, potential solutions to these problem areas, and then also looking forward, we're looking at adopting stormwater management plan standards to help to offset future impacts from future development or future redevelopment. And so that's where municipalities are required then to adopt a stormwater management ordinance that's developed as a model as part of the Act 167 process. So that's a required component per the legislation. I'm just going to throw this up here. If there are any counties on here, I'm not trying to throw anybody on the bus, but this is on the DEP website in terms of the Act 167 stormwater management plan status. And so you can see which counties likely undertook a countywide process because their entire county will be either green or red. When you see the little blobs, that means they did individual watershed plans. And then you'll see that there's a lot of hatching, which was not the case in recent times because of the fact that we have funding that has been recently allocated towards the 167 process. So we have many counties, not as many as we'd like to see, but several counties that have taken advantage of that, and they are currently in the process of updating their 167 plans in coordination with their municipalities. And so those are the ones that you see in hatching there. And I will, side note is that even though Allegheny County's plan's a little bit over 5 years old, it's still one of the more recent plans that have been adopted in the state. And you can actually download a complete list if you're interested of who has, what dates those plans were adopted throughout the state from DEP's Act 167 website, if you just Google that. So Center for Watershed Protection is currently working with Chester County on updating their Act 167 plan. And this is just an example of some of the tools that are created to really engage A, the public, and B, municipalities in the importance of stakeholder input as part of these processes. We've developed an app for the county to use, which they haven't quite rolled out yet, for both public participation and municipal participation. So this app will show first of all, we have a lot of existing data that was collected as part of a Brandywine Creek flood study, but they can submit their stormwater issue through this form, which allows their location, if you're using a phone or something like that. And a lot of detail on there. And so this information is then taken and assessed as part of the plan, and looking at potential project solutions and potentially where, regulations need to be assessed or tightened possibly because of impacts that are occurring. And so that the idea is that this tool will be available in perpetuity for municipalities to use. It also, if the public's using it, there's a lot of information on okay, what exactly are we, how do we define flooding? How do we define debris jams? How do we define erosion? So there's little information cards on that. And then, yes, the county will be using this to to continually update their Act 167 plans, but not only to just inform this one. So moving on to the MS4 permit and how this is related to Act 167 and kind of a county level planning or a watershed-based planning. A lot of people may have heard that there's been a new draft MS4 permit that's been published. It was published back in January of this year. It underwent a public comment period. DEP's currently addressing those comments now. And they're anticipating and hoping, still thinking that the notice of intents for renewal of the general permits will be anticipated to be due to September 30th, 2026. So that's just basically next year. The municipalities that this impacts in the Ohio River Basin county, so this is just any county that intersects the Ohio River Basin in Pennsylvania, just to give a snapshot. It's not, there's some counties that don't have any municipalities with MS4s, but there are certainly a lot that do have municipalities that have MS4 permits. And the reason for that is because it is really a permit that's based off of urban impacts. So it's proportionate with population density, as defined by the U.S. Census, and that determines who's regulated and who's not. And that's why you see the blobs around Pittsburgh and Erie that have MS4 permits or waivers. So just also caveat is this draft permit is only going to impact general permittees, existing and future, and then waivers, potentially waivers that may move to a general permit. DEP is still working on the individual permit, and that is to be determined. The biggest changes as part of the permit, DEP assembled a work group. They called it the PAG 13 work group. They call it the PAG 13 because they have a lot of NPDES general permits, and that's kind of the code for it, under different program areas. This is PAG 13 is the code for the NPDES general permit for municipal separate storm sewer system. And the input from the work group really included things about the current permit term that maybe could have been changed, could have been done better, what people liked about the current permit term. And there was representatives in the profession from the private sector, the nonprofit sector, and then local government as well as multi-municipal collaborations, groups that are already working together to address MS4 requirements. And so there was a shift in, it was expressed that it was challenging to explain to elected officials and even sometimes municipal staff about why we are addressing sediment reduction through volume management practices instead of just doing things like street sweeping and actually removing sediment that's on the ground. So that kind of goes along with what we were talking about, how water quality and water quantity are so closely related. And as a result, DEP proposed to shift from a focus of pollutant load reduction and measuring 10% sediment reduction for municipalities that have a pollutant reduction plan requirement to a volume requirement reduction, a stormwater volume requirement reduction. And then another result of the work group was considering socioeconomic factors when determining requirements. A lot of discussion about what maximum extent practicable means, as that is mentioned in the Code of Federal Regulations when it comes to MS4. Municipalities that have MS4 permits are required to minimize pollution to the maximum extent practicable, which isn't defined anywhere. And so is that different for each municipality, or is it, the same, depending? Well, it may be different. So I think that was proposed, not every municipality can afford to do the same amount within a designated time frame. Increased planning time. These last three bullets really go to surround collaboration. So increased planning time. When it came to the last permit, there wasn't a lot of time to develop pollutant reduction plans and quality pollutant reduction plans, let alone think about talking to neighboring municipalities about working together. And people were just really stressed out about getting the plans proposed in. And then standardizing reduction requirements, again, so that you can more easily work together. If you're using the same methodology, then DEP is going to be a proponent of you working together, as you can't compare apples to oranges when it comes to that. And then incentivizing collaborations, not just not just saying, yes, we want people to collaborate, but actually putting some value to that. And so we'll get to how DEP is proposed to do that as part of this permit. So this is just a snapshot of what the basic permit program components are currently through the 2018 permit cycle. You have your minimum control measures, your model stormwater management ordinance, which is also a requirement of 167. Pollutant reduction plans, total maximum daily load plans, pollutant control measures in your annual report. Pollutant reduction plans were really the biggest challenge of the 2018 permit cycle. And the biggest change proposed as part of this draft is replacing the pollutant reduction plans, measuring sediment as the objective for improving water quality, to volume management plans and measuring volume as a means of improving water quality. And then also suspending the pollutant control measures, which were designed to address other water quality objectives. So DEP has time to process that and then utilize that information. So really the takeaway here with this is that DEP developed what's called a maximum extent practicable calculator that's going to determine each municipality's particular volume management objective. And that will be the basis for determining how many projects need to be done for a volume management plan. And the goal is ultimately to attain water quality standards. And so DEP has defined that as treating 88% of impervious within the urban area through stormwater control measures over a 50-year period of time. And that 88% comes from the fact that that's basically research out there that's determined that that's the threshold at which streams become impaired from urban causes or urban sources. So the treat part, this is where it's a focus on volume rather than sediment reduction, is that, you're proposing stormwater control measures that reduce or manage the 1-inch runoff volume through these practices. So there's some practices that aren't going to be as cost effective this permit cycle, like street sweeping and cleaning and stream bank stabilization type restoration practices. And I won't go into detail on that because I just don't have the time to. Okay, this is what the maximum extent practicable calculator looks like. And what I want to emphasize here is there's a bunch of different sections. They might be hard to see here, but there's the financial socioeconomic factor. It's based on the amount, the original amount is based on the impervious area within the urban area that's untreated. You apply socioeconomic factors. You answer some more questions about the potential opportunities you have for stormwater control measures. And then you come down here and there's an actual collaboration credit for the, working with multiple municipalities on a volume management plan. So the more municipalities that you're working with, the lower your volume management objective will be in this permit term. It doesn't mean you're absolved of doing that for forever and ever. It just means that your timeline will be extended past that 50 years. So it's just giving you more time, which is a benefit because I think most people would be okay with that. It also is giving collaboration credit, another reduction in volume management. So it's an actual incentive for those MS4s working on a volume management plan that want to become co-permittees as well, which helps to reduce the administrative burden of the program on DEP. Collaboration for the volume management plan. What does it look like? Look at HUC 12 watershed level or county level are the options, which is very similar to what the Act 167 planning process is. It also requires intergovernmental agreements, and I will say that's nothing new. That's something that is required for collaboration in this current permit term. And then, some of the other things like we can get in the weeds about, but one of the big benefits is being able to propose stormwater control measures in more locations than you would be otherwise to meet your requirements. So there are municipalities that are already working together, and we have talked to a lot of them. We interviewed them and decided to help to develop a tool that can help get some of these collaborations off the ground. And so this is just a highlight of some of the regional collaborations in Pennsylvania, the specific ones that we either talked to or did research on. And there are many more, some smaller individual, maybe two municipalities that collaborated on a project that aren't shown here. I'm not showing there's 3 different joint permits in the state, which I think it could be a lot more, but they're not shown here. This is also going to be something that we're working to expand as an ongoing project. So if you are part of a collaboration as a municipality or know of one, please shoot that information to me. So as you can see, people are collaborating either on a county scale or they're collaborating on watershed scale. And the watershed scale collaborations for MS4 tend to be centered around total maximum daily load watersheds. So that's just kind of what makes sense. They have requirements that are specific to them. And then really there's a lot of county agencies that tend to take the lead on some of these multi-municipal collaborations in MS4. But it's not exclusive to them. So what did all of these groups have to say? They had very similar things to say about the benefits of working together. Saying that it saves time and money, it provides significant advantage in grant funding. And because grant funding is so competitive, the more partners that you work with, the more favorable your application. Mentioned earlier, it expands potential project locations. That was even true in the current permit cycle, not just the future, and enables bigger, more meaningful projects. And there's a cost effectiveness, so there's an efficiency in implementing bigger projects. So then it also offers the opportunity for groups, municipalities to connect and communicate, share resources. That was actually a benefit that I think most of the groups did not anticipate to be such a value, but it ends up being a value to be able to get everybody in the room and talk about the same issues that everyone is dealing with. And then it facilitates consistency on a regional scale as well. It gives opportunities to do joint trainings and also possibly, working on enhancements to your ordinance. Again, when it circle back to 167 on the county side of things, when it comes to model stormwater ordinances. But it's not without challenges, and some of those challenges are the decision-making speed when you're dealing with multiple municipalities and adding another meeting to their schedule and having to go back and then get approval from either their administration or their elected officials before moving forward with and as a group. Sometimes active participation from all members. We have municipal staff turnover. We have election cycles, so there's constant education. The members, the elected officials, that are of the members of the multi-municipal groups. And then there's also this perceived regulatory risk, which is really something that is a roadblock early on to this is, okay, well, I don't know if I want to go ahead and collaborate with somebody because there's no actual framework to do this. There's no pathway. DEP says it's allowed, but we might spend thousands of dollars on trying to work together, and then we propose it to DEP and they say, no, that's not the right way to do it. I will say DEP is very amenable to working with collaborations, but there isn't something that takes the guesswork out of it. So we did work on creating this multi-municipal tool, which is we dubbed it the Pennsylvania MS4 Collaboration Toolkit. I just want to mention that the majority of the funding coming from the Campbell Foundation with some funding from William Penn Foundation. The platform looks like this. We do have a PDF technical guidance document, but we have everything hosted on a ArcGIS online web experience and shows basically everything related to that. And we have summary sheets of all of the collaborations that were interviewed. And so there's a lot of different assets to this that you can kind of explore around. There's an interactive map, there's a story map, there's a bunch of good stuff. Some templates for intergovernmental agreements, some templates for credit sharing, and it's all based on this current permit term. So it will be updated moving forward once we get closer to having a finalized general permit coming out. So in conclusion, we have MS4 167, great regulatory tools for planning. If there's a county that's looking to update their 167 plan this is the time to do it, as there's probably going to be some more funding, and that's take a look at the Growing Greener Plus that comes out. Contact Jamie Eberl from DEP about that funding. She's the 167 lead in central office or one of your regional offices. And then that can be used as a mechanism to really bring together some of the MS4s in your group. I do have some technical resources, and I think the presentations will be shared in PDF form. So, these links you'll be able to see later, and some funding resources as well. Well, that's all I have. I don't know if anybody has any questions now or want to just
Thank you,
stay
Beth.
with it. Yeah.
If anyone has questions now, shout them out. Otherwise, we can go ahead to hear from Stephanie and then have questions from everybody at the end. All right. I'm not hearing any immediate questions. So once again, thank you, Beth. The next speaker is Stephanie Wiedner with the Cedarville Engineering Group, and she's going to talk about the PennDOT Connect program, which is a program within PennDOT so that, when you're working on roads and planning roads, you can interact with PennDOT and their planners and get planning support to help you. And one of the things you can get support for is working with some of the stormwater, all the challenges you're going to have with building a road. So please, Stephanie.
Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, so I will be presenting on PennDOT Connects, like he was saying. And this will be a nice complement to Beth's slides that she just had. All right, can everyone see my screen okay?
You might want to switch there, you're good.
Okay, perfect. I think it's just a little slow to update. Okay, so like we were saying, we're going to talk about PennDOT Connects and kind of how this will also help planning with your communities, way it can save municipalities money, how this will relate to the stormwater program. So we're just going to dive on in. So going through our objectives for this presentation is, let's talk about what is PennDOT Connects. It's surprisingly a really good resource that many people don't know about. How this will apply to your municipality, or like we were saying, your region as well. How can PennDOT Connect strengthen your asset management and the relationship between PennDOT Connects and stormwater management, as well as some of the tools and resources that are there that can help. It is a large library of information. It's free, so you might as well use it. So going into it, what is this PennDOT Connects that we're talking about? Overall, they see themselves as a holistic approach, which will help communities' vision. And the idea behind it is increased efficiency as well as cost effectiveness for these communities, and really ensuring like those best allocations of resources. So PennDOT and the planning experts that they have will invest in your communities, and it'll help by engaging with your local governments prior to developing your projects. So the key with this too, and a common theme you'll see throughout, is get the projects in early and work with PennDOT early if you can. It's never too late, but the earlier the better. And they will also help you work on your scopes and cost estimates, as well as discuss details for each one of these projects. And then the overall outcome of this is looking for that partnership that will deliver projects, improve economic competition, give them access to this work, as well as overall life improvement for residents and visitors of their community. So these are all things from the PennDOT website. They're really pushing for people to utilize these resources for them. So what do they offer for you guys? They have these municipal outreach sessions. And then they have drop-in sessions, which I will be conducting one in October of 2025. They do workshops, they have newsletters, they have online trainings, as you showed here, tech sheets, best practices for planning. So they'll give a lot of planning examples, and then planning and engineering familiarization modules. So what does this mean for you guys? these are free resources. You know, I know that sometimes we have municipalities that have smaller staff. You might as well use the opportunities that PennDOT's presenting here to help reach out to you. They'll do workshops, they'll supply information. They're not going to do the entire project for you, but they will certainly help get you off on the right foot. So I wanted to kind of give a nice little screenshot here of what's currently on the PennDOT Connects website. When I talk about online tech sheets, this is a very relevant long list of information here ready for you. Anything from, you know, your asset inventory and GIS, you know, how to work with highway occupancy permits. So for any of us that have state roads going through their communities, this is something that's very relevant. PennDOT One Map, which we'll jump into later, as well as anything that may be relevant for traffic calming. And these can also relate back to green infrastructure. So this kind of comes back to that stormwater management aspect. And then online trainings, you know, they have adaptive reuse trainings, they have integration of your transportation and land use trainings. So while we only think of PennDOT as, you know, maybe the people that we deal with just potholes or someone that's annoying because a road shut down, there's a lot of different things that PennDOT can offer that goes beyond the road. So kind of look at this as an opportunity to see more than what we think of our typical understanding of PennDOT. So these are some clickable options here for anyone who gets the presentation later. So this is one of their options that they have for their assistance and trainings. So these are some of the forms you fill out, and they will do a half-day session with your community, and they will work with you on planning. And this is also somewhere that you can talk to and kind of use as a resource on how to plan, and take that step a little bit further and maybe work with, you know, resources that maybe your community can't afford, or even if they can, you know, this is something for you to use. So how does this really apply to your municipality? So municipalities often juggle with a wide range of needs. They need safe streets, economic development, stormwater management, and multimodal options for residents. So PennDOT Connects provides a structured way to bring these priorities to the table during this transportation planning. Communities can advocate for improvements such as crosswalks, sidewalks, bicycle facilities, like I was saying earlier, traffic calming, stormwater management once again, transit connections to be built on state-funded projects. So if you have a project within your community, and this is something that can also partnership with PennDOT, this may be an opportunity for you to bring up a local concern that PennDOT's not aware of and have you collaborate with them and become part of that state-funded project. This helps ensure that the local land use, economic growth, and safety goals are not being overlooked by PennDOT. PennDOT can do the best that they can, but they don't know your community like you know your community. So that's really the lesson, you know, behind this. So moving on, how does this apply to your municipality? Even further. So who can utilize PennDOT Connects? You know, this is anyone from municipal staff, elected officials, planning partners, or consultants like myself. And then when should you reach out? I mean, like I was saying earlier in this presentation, any stage of the project's fine, but the earlier the better. You might as well engage with PennDOT sooner. If there's an idea, if there's an issue that's arising, you know, this is when you want to talk to them. And how do you reach out to them? So that's like the next important step. So you submit that municipal outreach training and technical assistance request, which was that link in the previous page. And this helps include, you know, site visits, facilitation, design guidance, process navigation. And then how do you prepare for these meetings? You're going to want to bring zoning maps, safety concerns, stormwater issues. If you have any funding timelines, if you have alternative grants that were kind of mentioned earlier, there's Growing Greener out there, as well as your MS4 permits. So kind of bring that holistic approach, and that can really help your community work with PennDOT together. So taking a little look at what PennDOT Connects can do also for your asset management. So PennDOT has a lot of assets that they're managing across the state. They are developing this location in GIS for you and for them, and it's open to the public. This is free information, and it can help you with your asset management. So for me, I live in Berks County. So this is something, you know, I just did a little couple examples here. And this one I have, if you go to this location here in the GIS PennDOT.gov one map, this is kind of what it will look like for you to engage with it. So you can either pick your county, your district, your municipality, your MRO. So there's a bunch of different filters there, depending on who you're involved with, where your funding's coming from. And then you can pick your category. So I picked planning and an environmental screening map. So here on the left-hand side, you can see that you have a bunch of different filters you can toggle. So I pick the MPMS tip in development filter. And then from there, I also did some Act 167 plans. So that kind of loops back to what Beth was saying earlier, which can help, you know, identify where these Act 167 plans are. So as we saw in Beth's map earlier too, there are some gaps in Berks County. And then the MPMS tip for PennDOT, which refers to the multimodal project management system that's used to manage transportation improvement projects throughout the area. So it includes details and geometry for projects that PennDOT's going to engage in, including the Commonwealth's 12-year plan. So this includes regional transportation improvement plans. And then the MPMS tip layer also contains various attributes such as project status, completion dates, and funding information, helping to track and manage transportation projects effectively. So taking this a step further, I selected the tip map. So we're kind of looking at a different map option here in one map. And then for me, I live in Berks County, and there is one project that PennDOT's doing that affects my commute every day. So that's where I have this gray area here, right above the long orange line on 422. So that's, you know, State Road 562, also known as Old Sweet Road for anyone who is on this side of the state. And it's important to look at these type of projects, because when you see that these projects are in planning, that's when you want to jump on that. If that project is in planning and it's in your community and you have something that you need to get done, if you need bike lanes, if you need to work on stormwater management, this can all help your permit obligations as well. So looping that all together, how does that help your permit obligations? So for municipalities with MS4 permits, PennDOT Connects offers an opportunity to align transportation projects with stormwater control measures required by DEP. These can help you integrate your best management practices, so also known as like SMPs, vegetated swales, infiltration basins, and upgrade inlets that count towards this MS4 compliance. They also provide training and technical guidance. Municipalities can use PennDOT's Stormwater Training Guidebook, which provides practical maintenance practices for roadside ditches, inlets, and roadside drainage. So as I was saying earlier, you know, we all don't have unlimited funding here, and we all don't have unlimited staff. So this is an opportunity for us to use already done resources by a larger entity and bring them back to your community. This provides free technical assistance through LTAP and PennDOT Connects, as well as helps municipalities design and maintain stormwater improvements effectively. So what are some of these tools? This is a big resource out there, so we could dive into it all day, but you know, high level, we're going to just keep some lists here for you guys so you have something to refer back to. One map, which I was showing earlier, accesses that statewide GIS data. There's also this local bridge inventory. The LTAP resource provides training and support on traffic safety and stormwater management. There's many other online training modules, which I showed you guys a list of some of the ones that are up there right now as well. There's these tech sheets. So those are your quick reference guides. If you don't know something and you find it on PennDOT Connects, there's a great little tech sheet in there for you, and it'll give you, you know, they range between 1 and 3 pages. So it's a nice digestible format to kind of get you started. They have a newsletter that they send out, as well as they do municipal outreach sessions. So they'll come out and have an interactive workshop with your municipality and they'll also do some resource demos. There's stormwater resources. So this supplies you policies, guidelines, and permitting info, assistance requests. So you can call PennDOT Connects and they will have people that can help you work through some of these things. So it's nice to have someone that you can call if you don't really know where to start. And then the PennDOT Connects webpage, which is just that go-to portal for all the resources that we said above. So this is what that webpage looks like. And then just kind of going through quickly some of those resources. So I was saying earlier, if you need to request assistance, you can use the Land Use and Transportation Planning Assistance form. And you can use these QR codes as well to get there. These are some examples of recent assistance that PennDOT's provided. So they'll do anything from safety plans, road safety audits, transportation plans, traffic calming, statewide grant assistance, multimodal grant application reviews. So if you're looking for a grant, they can also help, strengthen that grant application, and GIS support. So they also have this assistance flyer. So like I was saying, you can request free planning assistance, and they can help walk you through where to start, how to get there. And then these are your overall resources for PennDOT Connects. And that's what I have for my presentation. I do have the one map up on my browser if anyone would like me to go through it for them or their community, or have any demos of what we can do in that one map, but I'll leave that up to you guys.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right. So first, is there interest in doing some workshopping on the one map in the audience?
I don't know if there's like a react button, so we want some
Yeah,
hands
thumbs up
raised,
if
or if we
you
want to
want it.
throw it in the chat, that would work too. But if not, that's okay. Not insulted.
All right. I'm not seeing that, but we can come back to that if people come up with it. Are there questions in general for either of the speakers or both the speakers? All right. Then I guess I can start. Beth, you were talking about in some of these emerging MS4 regulations, that there's the benefit of working across municipalities in terms of funding, things like that. Was there much thinking about how that improves sort of a conceptualization of the ownership of the stormwater, and like thinking about those transfers and being a little bit more explicit about that?
The ownership of the practice or the stormwater itself?
The stormwater itself, because if you dump it on
Oh.
someone else, it's not yours.
Yeah, so I don't think there is. I mean, so from a regulate, there's a couple different ways to look at it, and obviously I'm not an attorney, but I have talked to some attorneys that do stormwater litigation, and from a municipal standpoint, nobody owns the stormwater, it's the infrastructure, and in court, usually the ownership ends at the right of way. And, from a regulatory perspective, there's a little bit more of a blurry line when in terms of what's included in a municipal separate storm sewer system, and where that ends and where that begins. Certainly ends at the municipal boundary, but it's important to coordinate from municipality to municipality. When it comes to working together on a pollutant reduction plan and sharing like pollutant reduction credits, or in the future here, volume management credits, the biggest thing is executing that intergovernmental agreement and understanding like that both parties are in the kind of have a mutual understanding and agreement on how those credits are going to be split up and divided and broken down, and what's fair versus what's not fair. And so for an example, these groups that are working together will like We'll use measurement tools like in terms of creating a multi-municipal pollutant reduction plan, how much urban area a municipality has, how much are they contributing to the pollutants, the pollution will be how much they have to pay, based on what their kind of baseline pollutant load contribution is. And the credits are kind of dispersed accordingly. And their funding formula is determined in a parallel way. And some collaboration, there's a lot of different ways to look at that, whether it's urban area within the municipality, the amount of impervious within the urban area, the length of impaired stream incorporating it as a factor, that kind of thing. So that kind of is a little bit related too, because it's not every municipality is contributing the same amount of pollution.
Right.
And everybody's looking upstream and saying, well, it's not me, it's coming from upstream, and
Right.
that's just, yeah, it's always coming from upstream. And that's just never, if that's where the discussion starts, it's never going to go anywhere. Because we kind of have to have this approach of understanding that we're all impacting. I mean, that's what we're teaching our kids in school is that, everybody lives downstream. Some people there's only some people that don't, but
Okay. Thanks. Watching for other questions.
Am I allowed to just ask the question in the chat? Sorry.
Sure, go for it.
Do you work within the Pennsylvania with the Army Corps of Engineers at all? I know that I did some research in school, and I was just wondering how the municipality would essentially work with other organizations, not just like the DEP.
so there are some funding programs through the Army Corps of Engineers. I haven't personally worked with them, but I know that municipalities have utilized their funding to pay for things um, like asset inventory of their stormwater systems, surveying them, and developing kind of like asset management, the basis of asset management programs. So in terms of funding, and I think the Corps will sometimes kind of facilitate the those through managing those projects as well. And then other than that too, they would get involved in things that are a little bit more on the like flood control side of things. But in Pennsylvania on the local municipal scale, I don't know how many individual municipalities are working commonly with the Army Corps. Other than also if you're going to be undertaking like a large stream restoration project, then you have to go through their compliance process. Stream or floodplain restoration if it hits their under their threshold, their impact thresholds.
Thank you for that.
Other questions?
How often is a reservoir like the solution? Because I know that takes a lot of time and money to build a reservoir, like upstream.
That is a good question. So, we're in this time period where we're doing a lot of dam removal, and so unless there's a drinking water supply, like, a lot of times reservoirs are, primary purpose is drinking water supply issues, maintaining that, but like those dams can also kind of be utilized for managing flood control in some instances too. But that being said, building new dams is in a situation where, I think that there's significant flood issues downstream, and we're seeing a lot more of removal of dams, especially low head dams that are, have failed or breached over time.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
I think it's a fine balance. Like, okay, how severe is the impact, downstream with flooding versus, ecological restoration, and maybe the solution is somewhere else.
I don't want to ask all the questions, but Stephanie, when you had your list of projects, there was definitely some clustering there. Can you say a little bit about how, like, what does it take to get people to really become strong users of this connects, or can you describe a process, how it worked well?
Yeah, so I know lately, there's been a lot of involvement with Lancaster County. And they've had a lot of use out of the PennDOT Connect system. I think that just comes from early and often engagement. And I think it comes also just from like education about the system. It's really like there's just a lot of people don't know about PennDOT Connects. You'll talk to people and they're just like, I don't even know what that is that you're talking about. I know PennDOT fills potholes, or I know they annoy me, for road changes, but I think it's just having this awareness and spreading this awareness of that resource. So Lancaster County has been really engaging with PennDOT to really do a lot of street improvements, especially since they've had more development in the area. And that's why you're seeing with them, if you look into some of the example projects they'll have too on that website, you'll see a lot with Lancaster recently. So I think it's more about when a municipality or a group kind of finds out how valuable this can be, they start engaging with them, and then you'll see kind of that cluster uptick of involvement.
Okay. Other questions for either or both? See somebody moving, but I'm not sure if they're asking a question. Okay. Then I think you answered a lot of questions. I am not hearing many, but I mean, I want to talk for a little bit in case somebody gets some courage. But I mean, I appreciate what both of you have done. I think these are really valuable, and I thank you both for talking a little bit more and a little bit longer, given our speaker emergency today. I'll just state again, we're going to be back here in September to talk about design. And once you've got yourself inserted into this planning process and you get to go, how do you design a good system? How do you design a system that's manageable is a really important thing. And in the long term, we're moving towards this December symposium. We have a lot of unique and interesting problems on this side of the state with stormwater management that are unique from some of the things that you have to deal with in the Eastern Piedmont. And so it's good that we're talking about this, and we thank IRISE again for providing the funding. Everyone who attended, we're going to make this recording available. We're going to make Matt's slides and notes available. And I think, Stephanie, we can make your slides available. I haven't asked the speakers yet. We'll ask the speakers so we can make things available.
I can PDF it and I'll send it to you.
For the link that you were showing, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, with the links, because then they can click on the PDF link embedded in there.
And for those of you who responded in the chat, we'll send out PDA certificates. And if you didn't respond, you change your mind, please let us know and give you some of your time back. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you soon. Thanks again to the speakers, and join me in thanking them with some round of applause. Or you could do it on your
I felt it.
reactions. There's John. All right. Thanks, everybody. Oh, there's 3 of them clapping at once. Thanks, everybody, and have a good Labor Day weekend.